Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender. So just a few days ago, I got back from a whirlwind week at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival. Over the course of like 8-9 days, I watched 24 films, most of which were in person, and then I caught up with like 5 more when I got home virtually. So there were some really outstanding films at Sundance this year. Some disappointing titles, some I didn't much care for, some were okay. A few were really great, and I'm excited to talk to you about those in this video. I thought, like I did a few months ago after I got back from the Toronto Film Festival, where my final video there was ranking everything I watched, I thought it would be fun to do that again for Sundance. So yes, I'm going to rank all 24 films I saw at Sundance this year. Let's start with number 24, By Design. This film is about Juliette Lewis turning into a chair. That's basically the premise of the movie. And it was so weird, I thought, well, this could be kind of interesting. I love Juliette Lewis. It has a good cast. But yeah, after the opening 10 minutes or so, which is kind of fun and quirky, no. No. This movie goes nowhere very fast. I must have counted 15 to 20 walkouts in my screening, and about an hour in, I was ready to leave too. But I thought, well, I've made it this far. I should probably finish the movie. And yeah, this one was disappointing. I had some expectations based on that weird premise and Juliette Lewis being the star. But this one just did not work for me at all, and I'm sad to say it was the worst film I saw at Sundance. Number 23, Bubble and Squeak. This one's trying to be a little Wes Anderson, a little Jojo Rabbit, and like By Design, it has a good cast. And Dave Franco has a very funny cameo. He's in like 5 to 10 minutes, about halfway through the movie. His section I liked. But everything around him, I just found kind of uninspired, tired, not very funny. This one scene at the end involving cabbages, I'll just say, goes on, and I was sitting there. I'm like, this movie needs an editor. Come on, people. This is supposed to be a comedy. Let's get some good pacing in this film. So yeah, I didn't care for Bubble and Squeak either. Like By Design, it was a very hard sit. Number 22, Rebuilding. Okay, so this one I'm probably gonna get some flack for because a lot of people I know and respect loved this movie. Gave it 3.5, 4 stars. Probably think it's one of the 5 best films at Sundance. Oh my God, this movie, starring Josh O'Connor, is extremely dull, I found. And it was so boring by the second half, I found myself looking up at the ceiling of the theater I was in. Just looking at what is on the ceiling of this building? What's up there? I'm all for a slow, quiet drama that doesn't have a ton of stuff happening. But this one, for whatever reason, just did not work. And by the end, I was so thankful for the end credits. Josh O'Connor is fine. I personally felt like he just kind of sleepwalked through that role. There wasn't anything about this movie I found to be that extraordinary. So honestly, I have been surprised at the amount of praise for it. By the standing ovation it got at Sundance at my screening, I was like, what? Okay, maybe I'm just having an off afternoon here. Maybe I will need to watch Rebuilding again at some point. If it becomes an awards contender or something, I'll be like, okay, maybe I need to watch this again. But yeah, in that moment, this one was not working for me. Number 21 is Train Dreams, which, like Rebuilding, it has nice cinematography and some decent performances, and maybe could be an awards contender later this year. I don't know. I saw this one after I got home virtually, and like Rebuilding, I was bored out of my mind. I was just like, oh my God. I was really struggling in this one. It's got Joel Edgerton and Felicity Jones, and again, very beautiful cinematography, but the story is so all over the place, so sprawling. I just didn't care after a while. and I was ready for this one to wrap up. Sorry. Number 20 is Oh Hi, the awkwardly titled Oh Hi! Exclamation points. This one was disappointing in that it starts really well. For about 20 minutes, like I was at an 8 out of 10 on this movie. It's very charming. The two leads have great chemistry. I'm a huge fan of Logan Lerman, have been since The Perks of Being a Wallflower. But basically, the plots of this movie takes over. And after that, I was like, ugh, really? That's what this movie is? Like, we're just gonna do like a modern kind of dark comedic version of Misery. And like the choices the characters make for a good hour, I did not buy into. I was like, nobody would do this. It was like 4 times in the movie. I'm like, if one person could just make the obvious right decision here, then the movie's over. Like, obviously there's talent on display. Maybe they could make a better movie. I didn't go with this one very much. Number 19 is If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. And here's another one I'm probably gonna get some pushback on because a lot of people I know really enjoyed this film, gave it 4 stars, and are saying Rose Byrne could be an Oscar contender next year for Best Actress, and she is very good in this movie. Like her performance is one of her best, to be sure, but I really did not like watching this film. It's like a 2-hour panic attack on the screen, and it's like one chaotic moment to the next for this main character played by Rose Byrne, and the camera's always like really close on her face, and it's like whipping around her as she makes bad decisions, and all of this, all of these crises in her personal life, and her job as a therapist, and it, like, for about half an hour I was kind of into it. I'm like, okay, this is interesting, and it just wore me out after a while, and not in a good way. I was so relieved when it was over. I was like, okay, I can like go for a walk, like that movie. I mean, obviously there is a vision behind it, and I appreciate aspects of it. I did like Conan O'Brien in a supporting role. Like how many times has he acted before in his long career? Like in a movie, you don't see that very often. He's pretty good in the movie. In some ways, I wish it was more about him. Like, I think I might have liked it more. But yeah, I mean, I do think some people are gonna go for this one. It just wore me out very quickly, and I didn't much care for this one. Number 18 is Atropia, which won like the top dramatic prize at Sundance, which I did find surprising because it's fine. I give it like a 6 out of 10. It's got an interesting backdrop, this place in California, this military base that simulates an Iraqi war zone. So like some Hollywood talent comes through, a lot of like trainees come through, and the backdrop, the main idea of Atropia is interesting, and it's got some nice moments of humor. I think Alia Shawkat in the lead role does a very good job. This one, kind of like a couple others I've talked about, it wore out its welcome after about an hour. And it started to feel repetitive, and it wasn't very funny. By the time it ended, I was like, okay. Some movies at Sundance I watched this year, they went on way too long, like for their premise and their main storyline. This one I think could have been tightened a little bit. But it's got some good elements in it. It's got this one like crazy out of nowhere celebrity cameo. I was like, how'd they get him? How'd they get him for this? So yeah, it's fine. I'm kind of surprised it won that dramatic prize at Sundance, like the top prize. I was like, really? Okay. So I guess some people really loved it. I was not one of them. Number 17 is Opus, which is from A24. I believe that movie's opening nationwide in March, like just a few weeks from now. And this one was a big disappointment in that it starts really well. It's got a great cast, like a group of characters going to this, compound in the middle of nowhere. John Malkovich plays this like famous musical artist, who's got something up his sleeve, and there's something dark about like what he's going to present to this group of like journalists and things. And so for about 30-40 minutes, like I was into it. I was like, okay, this will be fun. But then the second half gives you exactly what you're expecting. Like there are no surprises. I was like, really? Like, that's all we're doing in this movie? We're not going to do anything that's a little bit out of left field, or, by the end, I was really taken aback by how predictable the second half of the movie was. So, I mean, I give it a few points for a really good cast. The cinematography is nice, and there's some moments that work well, but the last 30 to 40 minutes really are a letdown. So that's why I have Opus so low on this list. Number 16 is Plain Clothes, which has a wonderful lead performance by Tom Blythe from the last Hunger Games movie. Like, his performance in it is good enough to, like, make me recommend the movie. I think he is worth seeing in this film. I don't know, but the narrative around him, it did kind of overstay its welcome after a while. I kind of saw where the movie was heading in the second half, and it didn't offer too many surprises. There's some good chemistry between the two lead actors and some interesting cinematography. I didn't really care for the constant switching between like film stock to digital. It's like bam, 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 back and forth throughout almost the entire movie, and that got tiresome after a while. But that Tom Blythe performance is very strong, and he makes the movie worth seeing, I would say. Number 15 is Rabbit Trap, starring Dev Patel, which is a movie in the moment I liked more than like days later thinking back on it. Like, it has a lot of mystery and intrigue and only 3 characters, at this home, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And like, in the moments, I was thinking Rabbit Trap would easily be in my top 10 films of Sundance. And here it is at number 15. Compared to some of the other movies I watched that week, like, Rabbit Trap has faded. Like, I haven't thought about that one very much. But it is interesting at times. It's got like an intriguing final act, and it does surprise you in a few ways. And again, that Dev Patel performance is solid, so I'd recommend it, but it's not having the lasting impact like some other films I saw. Number 14 is Lurker, which was one of the final films to premiere at Sundance. It was like Tuesday night of the festival, and this one kind of reminded me of Saltburn in a way, like a nobody who becomes friends with someone with a lot more power and prominence. In this case, it's a musician, a musical artist in Lurker, and we see how that friendship evolves into some dark places in the second half. It did surprise me along the way. I liked the performances a lot. It wasn't the most original film I saw at Sundance this year, kind of like Rabbit Trap. I haven't thought much about Lurker in the days past. When I went on my Letterboxd and looked at all my ratings, I had almost forgotten about Lurker, to be honest. And I was like, oh yeah, Lurker, that was good. I like that. But it can't be in my top 10 because it's not as memorable as some others. But the performances are strong. It's got a couple standout scenes, and I liked what it said about obsession, about fandom. It's got some interesting, like, dark sensuality at times where you're like, okay, is this movie gonna go quite in that direction? No, it pulls back. It has some interesting narrative steps along the way. So yeah, I'd recommend Lurker. Number 13 is Jim Paw, starring Olivia Colman and John Lithgow. I actually reviewed this movie for my Patreon. If you want to go over there, I have like a 10-minute plus review of this movie that goes more in depth. Basically, like, in the moment, I really, really enjoyed this film. It's got a very interesting story, apparently based on true life. The performances by Coleman and Lithgow are fantastic. In a weird way, Olivia Colman's character is like the least interesting thing about the film. Like, she's so talented, like, she makes the character, worthwhile, I guess. But like, John Lithgow is much more interesting in the film. Like, it's a performance we've never really seen from him. There were some scenes where I was like, damn, this could be maybe a Best Supporting Actor play for John Lithgow. But then the third act happens. I won't say, what takes place in the third act of the film, but I'm like, oh, maybe not. But Lithgow is quite striking in this. It tells a very compelling coming-of-age story, too, about a non-binary teenager. So yeah, it's a little bit messy, a little unfocused overall, but I want to say I liked Jimpa more than most of the other people I've talked to at Sundance, and I think you should see it. Number 12 is Andre is an Idiot. I saw 4 documentaries at Sundance. All were terrific. Even though this is ranked the lowest of the 4 documentaries, I still very much enjoyed it. The story of a man who, for whatever reason, decided, I'm not going to get a colonoscopy at 50. And then soon thereafter discovered he had colon cancer. And, it's a film with a lot of emotion, a lot of heart, a lot of humor, very well put together, shot, edited. It's a really engaging documentary I very much recommend. Number 11 is Marlee Matlin, Not Alone Anymore, another great documentary I saw at Sundance, all about the life and times of the great Academy Award winning actress from Children of a Lesser God, Marlee Matlin. And this movie does not hold back. You get to hear and see everything that went down with that film from 1986, with her Oscar win, with her turbulent relationship with that film's male star, William Hurt, and everything that happened thereafter. I learned so much about Marlee Matlin's life, like her struggles with her family, especially when she was growing up, her struggles to get work, in film and TV, even after winning her Oscar. Her fight to get closed captions, on content, on people's television sets. Marlee Matlin is one of the main reasons why we have that today. So, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in this documentary. If you are a fan of hers, this is a must-see. Number 10 is The Ballad of Wallace Island, which is a lovely film, beautiful cinematography, sense of place. It's kind of a quiet story. There's not much conflict, but you really do get a sense of this island and these characters. Carey Mulligan has a featured part in it, and she is very good. She has a moment of dialogue in this movie I have not forgotten. It really hit me. Like sometimes a moment of dialogue in a movie, just for whatever reason, where you are in your life and things, it really does hit you. And this moment I keep thinking about. She says to another character in the movie, "You don't love me. You're in love with the past. And it was great, but it's gone now." I just, that moment, has really stuck with me. And it has a lot of humor, a lot of emotion. It's got a great ending. It's a little slow. I wouldn't have it, in my top 5 at Sundance, but it's very well worth seeing. I very much enjoyed The Ballad of Wallace Island. Number 9 is Kiss of the Spider-Woman, which I did review for you on this channel a few days ago. I do think Jennifer Lopez gives an Oscar-worthy supporting performance in this film. She resembles Catherine Zeta-Jones in Chicago. Whenever she's on screen, you can't look away. It is a big, bold, musical performance from Lopez we rarely get from her. And I think if this movie gets with the right distributor and it comes out later in the year and they do an awards campaign for Lopez, I do think she can get her first Oscar nomination. The movie isn't perfect, as I talked about in my review. I think the middle 45 minutes or so of the movie are a little too slow. The pacing suffers. I felt like we were spending too much time in the jail cell. And at 2 hours and 8 minutes, I think this film could be tighter, 15 to 20 minutes, lopped off of it. I don't think would hurt the movie that much. I do think would help it. But the performances are excellent. I love the juxtaposition of the darker, quiet scenes in the jail cell and the big, bright Technicolor musical numbers. And that ending is a wow. I do think you should all see Kiss of the Spider-Woman and get ready for that Jennifer Lopez performance. Number 8 is Twinless, starring Dylan O'Brien. This movie really came out of nowhere. I hadn't heard much about it going into Sundance, and then I missed the premiere and everybody was talking about it to me, saying you have to see this one. I didn't get a chance in person, but I watched it right when I got home, virtually. And it's a really great film. It's funny, it's emotional, the characters are very well drawn, and that Dylan O'Brien performance, kind of a dual performance really, he is outstanding in Twinless. It's probably the best work he's ever done. So, I mean, I don't know if this movie can be a real pain and like get into the Oscars and things, but Dylan O'Brien, this is his best work to date, and I was really taken with his performance. I did feel like some of the story elements in the second half were obvious. I kind of knew what was going to happen with the two main characters pretty early on, I'd say. Like, it's got a couple nice beats toward the end that were unexpected, but like this particular narrative, like if you've watched enough movies, you kind of know where it's going. But again, the performances really make up for some of the predictability, I would say. And Dylan O'Brien, if you are a fan of his, get ready. You are in for a treat. Number 7, The Thing with Feathers, starring Benedict Cumberbatch. He plays a widow. His wife has died kind of unexpectedly, and he has 2 young kids. He's trying to navigate this new world without his wife. And in his intense grief, he starts to have these visions of a giant crow in almost like a horror movie way, like a very terrifying giant crow who is now basically like surrounding him at all times of the day. It sounds kind of silly, and in the hands of a different director, a different storyteller, might have really failed. But outside of like a few pacing issues and things, I was really taken with The Thing with Feathers. I thought it was really eerie and creepy at times. The effects are really strong, and Benedict Cumberbatch gives an excellent performance. Like one of his best, I would say. He's very good in the film. I feel like some people, like cynical viewers, might by the end be like, I don't know. And like some other films I've talked about in this video, it hasn't stayed with me in the days since having seen it the way some others have. Like originally I thought The Thing with Feathers would easily be in my top 5. But no, it's like number 7, around there. It's still very good if you love Benedict Cumberbatch. Again, this is a fantastic performance from him, and I think you should check it out. Number 6 is The Perfect Neighbor. So right before virtual Sundance ended, I squeaked in 2 more documentaries I had been hearing great things about, and boy, they are both amazing. The Perfect Neighbor is unlike any documentary I've ever seen. There's no talking heads, there's no voiceover. You basically watch something unfold over 90 minutes, all through body cam footage, security cam footage that has been assembled in a way to make this film like a thriller. Like you are on the edge of your seats and you can't look away. Basically the story of a woman who was shot in Florida, mother of 4 kids, and you learn about like who the woman was who shot her from the other side of a door. And everything leading up to the murder, everything that happens after, it's just, I mean, it's very unsettling. It is not an easy watch at all, but it is essential documentary viewing. This one is great. Number 5 is Come See Me in the Good Light, which was my favorite documentary I saw at Sundance. It was the last film I watched virtually. What a way to go out. This is one of the best documentaries I have seen in a long time. And unlike The Perfect Neighbor, like even though it's about, some difficult emotional subject matter, a poet who gets cancer and navigating that landscape with her partner, this movie is handled in such a beautiful, accessible way. Like even people who don't care for documentaries, I think will really take something away from this and be involved and want to stay all the way to the end. I mean, this journey between these 2 women in love is quite something, and I mean, I was in tears at the end. It's so moving, so well put together, beautifully paced. Like, this is one of the great documentaries I have seen in a long time. Number 4 is The Wedding Banquet, starring Bowen Yang and Lily Gladstone, and a truly amazing cast. Like, also Joan Chen and Ye Jung Yoon, and like, I kind of knew sitting down for this one, we were in for a treat. And I just, like, knowing it's the director of Fire Island, which is great, The Wedding Banquet, which is based on a 1993 film directed by Ang Lee. This one is very funny, very unpredictable. It goes to places you don't expect. Some wonderful moments of like outrageous humor, really lovely, quiet moments. between two gay couples and their journeys they take together. And, I talked about Oh Hi being too much about the plots. The wedding banquet could have become too much about kind of the crazy plot that starts to take place about 20 to 30 minutes in. It is a little bit like, it's a little wild what happens to the characters in this movie. But you so buy into these characters and these performances, and it's so fresh and funny all the way through. I enjoyed the ride. I think you will too. Bleecker Street has this one. I believe it's coming out in April. It'll probably be on Hulu soon after that. Keep an eye out for The Wedding Banquet. It is well worth your time. Number 3 is Omaha. And let me just tell you right now, I have not cried this hard in a movie in a long time. There are 2 moments in Omaha, this new drama starring John Magaro, as a father whose wife just died, and he has 2 kids and a dog, and he's trying to make ends meet, and they go for this journey in his car, like trying to find a better life. And it's a very quiet film. There's not a whole lot of plots. It's more about behavior and cinematography and quiet emotion. And boy, I was really taken with this one from the beginning. And, unlike Rebuilding, which I found just really slow and boring without much of a purpose, Omaha is slow, but there is this underlying tension to the narrative to the point where you cannot look away, where you're something bad is coming and you don't know when it's gonna happen. And that last 30 minutes, I just kept crying. Sometimes I'll watch a movie that has sad moments and I'll tear up and things. Like Omaha, I was like, toward the end, I was like trying to catch my breath. I was like, this movie is too much. This is too much. John Magaro, I am telling you right now, gives an Oscar-worthy performance. I would love to see John Magaro's name tossed around as a Best Actor contender the next few months. I don't know, what's happening with Omaha, who might be putting it out later in the year, but this could be an After Sun kind of nomination, a quiet, intense performance from an actor who's been doing great work for years. I mean, the other film I saw at Sundance that made me cry about as hard as Omaha was Past Lives 2 years ago, my favorite film of 2023, also starring John Magaro. So thanks, John. You're really getting the tears out of me. You're such a great actor. I think he gives an astounding performance in this movie. And there's a couple little things at the end I was like, I don't know. There were a couple things that I didn't love. It's also very brief. It's 80 minutes long. It's one of the shortest films I've seen in a long time. This one does not overstay its welcome at all. But I very much recommend Omaha. I think that John Magaro performance is one of the best I saw at Sundance. I really, really hope enough people see this movie, appreciate that John Magaro performance to keep his name in the conversation in the months to come as an awards contender. He is that good in Omaha. Number 2 is Together, starring Alison Brie and Dave Franco. I described it kind of as The Substance meets The War of the Roses. Think about The Substance, but if it was a relationship drama between 2 people who've been together for a few years and their relationship is at a really bad place, but something in the new area they've just moved to is slowly bringing them closer together. The less you know about this movie, the better off you'll be, because I went in cold. I didn't know what the film was about. And I mean, this was such an important film to me at Sundance this year, because it was the 4th film I saw in a row on a day where the first 3 movies I watched were not working for me. After the 3rd film, I was literally saying out loud, do I even like movies? 3 in a row that I've talked about earlier in this video where I was just oh God, okay, this movie Together, I need you to work. I need you to be good to remind me why I love cinema. And boy, did this film do that and more. I loved every minute of this movie. It is so much fun. It is a blast. It is twisted. It is disgusting, surprising, so entertaining. Alison Brie and Dave Franco, a real-life couple, right? They're together in real life, play the two leads of this movie so brilliantly. Like, this may be my favorite performance ever of Alison Brie, and I have adored her for more than a decade, I would say, in tons of films and TV projects. She is such a freaking awesome actress, and she really gets to show her stuff in Together. Dave Franco is very good too. He's got some really twisted, funny moments in this, and by the end, your jaw is just on the floor. You're like, what? Oh my God, we are really going there? I would say if you loved The Substance the way I loved it, you're going to love Together. I'm so happy Neon picked this movie up. They are releasing it in theaters nationwide on August 1st. So keep an eye out on Together this coming summer. I think you're going to love it. And finally, that takes me to my number one choice. What do I think is the best film I saw at Sundance 2025? In some ways, this was an easy call to make because of all the films I watched, this is the one I keep thinking about. This is one that has such an original voice. I mean, we're going to be hearing a lot about this movie in the months to come. Sorry Baby. Written by, directed by, and starring Eva Victor is the one film I'm talking about in this video you all need to see. You have to see Sorry Baby. This is what makes Sundance such a pleasure when you walk into a film like Sorry Baby knowing nothing. I had seen a still of the main character holding a cat, and that's it. I think one person had said something I'm hearing good things about Sorry Baby. Make sure you check that one out in a tweet or something. I saw that listed. But I walked in this could be a nothing movie. I don't know. And it's just one of those exciting films where you see a writer-director's voice just immediately come to life on the screen and give us something that couldn't have been made by anybody. Eva Victor is so talented, has such competence, behind the camera, in front of the camera, from scene to scene, you know you're in good hands. And what I love about Sorry Baby is all the courageous choices made in this screenplay, which won a screenplay prize at Sundance, which is great. Eva Victor is not interested in just giving you something you've seen before. This is a movie that's very, very funny at times, but is also extremely dark, about very serious subject matter, but handled so beautifully the way we jump from different tones. I feel like a lot of other filmmakers would have crumbled in this narrative very early on, but Eva Victor knows exactly how to balance those tones from scene to scene, from section to section. In some ways, Sorry Baby to me felt like an adaptation of a short story collection, where the stories are connected with the same character. The movie does bounce around a lot in time, but you can always easily follow the narrative, follow the trajectory of this character and what she's going through, and the performances are outstanding. Eva Victor, I'm only familiar with her through the TV series Billions, which I watched a couple years ago. She is so freaking great in Sorry Baby. So is Naomi Ackie and Lucas Hedges. Lucas Hedges has a frickin' dynamite supporting role in this, his best work in a long time. And it was just a pleasure every step of the way watching Sorry Baby. It's so well done, so original. It gets my highest recommendation. A24 picked it up out of Sundance. A24. So you are all going to be seeing Sorry Baby, I'm sure, in the months to come. I don't want to say anything about the plot. The less you know about Sorry Baby, the better. Just go into this one cold, and I promise you, you are going to have a most memorable time at this one. So Sorry Baby is my choice for the best film I saw at Sundance this year. And I do think in the months to come, we're going to be hearing a lot more about this one, and especially, I would say, in the best original screenplay category, Sorry Baby is going to be a major awards contender. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below which Sundance titles that I talked about in this video are you most excited to watch, and I'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.